This is News Guardian. News Guardian.
I love your show. You got great topics. You got great guests.
On WFJX, Fox Radio 910.
Good morning. Welcome to your News Guardians on Fox Radio 910. I'm News Guardian Chip.
Man, I'm News Guardian Greg. I had coffee today. It doesn't seem to have helped.
You didn't play the A-Team opening theme. That's probably your problem.
In 1972, a crack commando unit was sent to prison by a military court for a crime they didn't commit. These men promptly escaped from a maximum security stockade to the Los Angeles underground. Today, still wanted by the government, they survive as soldiers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire the A-Team.
Oh, yeah.
Is that better?
Does that help a little bit? I mean, I'm doing it for you.
Yeah, I think so.
So, I guess we have to be the political A-Team because we seem to be the only people that I know that are actually asking the right questions about this ridiculous immigration. The Democrats and
Michael Savage.
Yes, Michael Savage.
Is on top of this 159%.
Yes. So, he called Nancy Pelosi's
a seditionist.
And he's right.
Yeah.
100%. You just don't understand how hard it is down the border.
Really? That's it.
We're all Americans, Greg. The border runs through America, and borders don't really matter anymore. It's all about caring about the people that are being shipped here illegally from all across Central and South America.
Yes, today's show, we are going to bring you the exact quote where Nancy Pelosi effectively says Mexicans and Americans are all Americans and there's just a border running through our community.
Border?
We're not kidding. We are not kidding. That's what she said. We're going to play it for you.
Now, I know Michael Savage said it, and we're saying it, but, it'd be interesting. It'd be nice if, I don't expect CBS or CNN or any of the other major broadcasters to say something like that. But I do expect the Republicans to say it.
No, but the Republicans over the weekend tried to put up a fight against our administration.
Sort of.
They put our 6th district congressman Bob Goodlatte up against Congressman Xavier something or other on on Fox News Channel.
Wow.
on the Chris Wallace, is that his name?
Yes.
On the Chris Wallace show.
The clips you have are priceless, by the way.
Thank you, and we're going to play those for you. We're going to play for you. I think the Congressman Xavier trying to explain just where this authority for the president to do what he wants to do without the Congress actually writing a law for it comes from. And there's specifically, Wallace is going to ask him in this clip about the Supreme Court saying 9-0 Supreme Court decision saying that the president illegally, unconstitutionally made appointments, executive branch appointments, when Congress was in session. And you're going to love the justification. He's asked, where do you get basically where do you get the constitutional authority to do this? That's not the question he answers. You're going to love the actual answer. It's priceless. Then we'll have later on, he gets Bob Goodlatte to talk about this lawsuit, which we talked about on the radio last week.
That lawsuit makes my blood boil. It's a stupid thing.
And Chris Wallace says to him, okay, you've tried this before, and the Supreme Court says you have other remedies to take care of this and dismisses the suit, and then Chris has asks him about the other remedies, and Bob articulates every remedy they have as Congress except for one, and we're not going to tell you what that is. Let's see if you can guess which authority Bob Goodlatte completely ignores when he is talking to Chris Wallace in this interview. Doesn't even mention it. They're so scared of doing it, he won't even say the word.
I'm at the point now with these clips where I'm about to have a Greg Aldridge moment.
Nice. Are we going to have to just play the A-Team over and over again for an hour?
See, it doesn't have the A-Team thing doesn't have the mollifying effect on me that it has on you. But go ahead and play the clip. You've been teasing it. Go.
I feel a lot. No, not yet. We got more to. Just hold on. Just
let's go.
Relax.
I want to fight somebody.
Oh my gosh! How'd you wake up on my side of the bed this morning?
That's a scary thought.
We also have a story from the Washington Examiner about the IRS being told by the courts they have to pay a $50,000 fine to the National Organization for Marriage. And why do they have to do that? They have to do that because the IRS illegally disclosed private information from this organization to their political enemies to help Barack Obama during the 2012 election. No kidding.
$50,000.
$50,000 is the fine. We're going to tell you all about that.
That's a difference maker.
So there's all kinds of stuff going on. And all kinds of things that resources are being devoted to while our veterans die waiting for care in the VA system. And we've got what may just be the most ridiculous story of what they did instead of helping veterans that you've heard yet. We're going to talk about that. And then finally, the National Security Agency, which prides itself on privacy and security, released its first full transparency report because they're going to be transparent to us about all the secret stuff that they're doing.
Yes,
and we'll tell you what's in that report. We've got so much going on today. I just can't wait. Do you want to get into it? You want to get the first break out of the way and come back and dive right in?
Let's go ahead and take the first break. Anybody we want to give a shout out to this morning?
Anybody we want to give a shout out to this morning? Well, a News Guardian Elizabeth may be listening on the road. She is traveling with my parents to Washington D.C. to give them a tour of the monuments and the Capitol and stuff. They asked me to do it, but I can't go to D.C. without throwing up. So Elizabeth stepped in and said, she's Wonder Woman. She can do these things. Wonder Woman stepped in and said, I'll take care of it. So they're probably somewhere past Harrisonburg right now.
You are a very, very fortunate man.
I sure am. And my parents are fortunate because I texted a congressman and said, hey, can you get my parents into the Capitol? And he texted back and said, sure. So my parents are going to get to go inside the Capitol for a tour today, which I guess having congressmen fear you is a benefit. They don't have to like you. They just have to do what you want. And now the question is, am I going to get a text someday saying, hey, can you do such and such?
For me.
For me.
It's a quid quo. Of course, just getting your parents into a tour of the Capitol is not exactly...
It's not quid pro quo if I say no. Because unless it's something that should be done and is right to do and is constituted, that's not selling out.
Sell out.
If there's no trade here, if it's wrong, I'm not going to do it.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. Calm down, man.
And if it's the right thing to do, I would have done it anyway.
It's okay. Do you need a hug?
Do what?
Do you need a hug?
No. You know what I need?
What?
I need for you. Respect my authority.
Well, let's kick that break. Let's go. All right, go get them.
We're going to take the first break. We're going to come back, and you just don't miss today's show. Stick around because this is going to be wild and crazy.
This is Adrian Cronauer, the guy Robin Williams played on the movie Good Morning Vietnam. I just want you to know I always tune in to the News Guardian right here on Fox Radio 910.
You know what would be really cool?
What would be really cool?
If Robin Williams listened to News Guardians also.
Well,
if we could have Adrian Cronauer and the guy who played him in the movie both listening to News Guardians, that would be funny.
That would be. So I'm not in the mood to fool around anymore. I want to play the Xavier clip so I can pound on him.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, here's what's going on. So if you're just tuning in, over the weekend, Chris Wallace wanted to talk about the lawsuit that the Republicans are going to file. Well, actually, the Congress is going to file it. it's controlled by Republicans, the House of Representatives, but they're going to file a lawsuit against the president to stop him from unconstitutional acts.
Makes me so mad.
Also, some rulings have been handed down. Last week, the Supreme Court said 9-0 that the president does not have the authority to make appointments to executive branch positions without congressional approval unless Congress is out of session, which it says in the Constitution. But he just thinks, if he wants, he's basically just going to do whatever he wants to do, and come up with some mumbo jumbo to justify it and move on. So they get our congressman from the 6th District, Bob Goodlatte, on to talk about this. And they've also got Congressman, and I'm looking for his name. I know it's Xavier. Here it is, Xavier Becerra, on to talk about this. Now, Mike opens up here, and he asks Congressman Xavier, where does the president get the authority to do all of these things?
This is one of those priceless political answers I've heard in a long time.
We've got two answers from him. This is the exchange between Chris Wallace and Congressman Xavier on where the president gets the authority to do all these things that even the Supreme Court now says he can't do. You're going to love it.
Congressman Becerra, 9-0 in the Supreme Court. Isn't this another clear case of presidential overreach?
When you face a Republican majority in the House that is playing this game of shutdown politics, blocking everything the president wants to do, including confirmation of judges and of agency heads.
The House does not confirm.
I understand. I said, but in the case of the House, for example, the House decided.
I'm asking you a specific question. The 9-0 decision by the Supreme Court on making recess appointments when the court said, and it was a liberal justice, Stephen Breyer, who wrote the unanimous decision when the court said the Senate wasn't in session. Isn't this presidential overreach?
What the president did, what presidents have done since the time of horse and buggy, Republicans and Democrats alike, is use the power to appoint to go out there and do that.
Okay. So he's asked about how can the president do this when the Senate is actually in session, and he starts talking about the House of Representatives
and houses of representatives. I mean, it's well, because
the Constitution doesn't allow it. What can he say? So he went in. He does what politicians do, and actually, what we work with our people to do when they're working with the media is you have a message, and when you're asked a question, you make your message the answer. The problem is that there is an actual answer to this question, and the answer is he doesn't have the authority.
It's quantifiable. It's not like it's not an opinion.
Yeah, this isn't what you believe. This is the Constitution is very specific, and Congressman Xavier, there's no way he can be honest answering.
As much as I'm sure the liberals on the court would like to have sided with the president, I mean, they've got to. I mean, this one's. I mean, anybody that's read the Constitution knows that appointment answer, they couldn't do what they did. It's absolutely positively
it's
violates the Constitution. It's kind of like you got to ask a question one time. You always like to use the example, well, if it's okay to have the president that's 34 years old instead of 35 years old.
Because, the founders just meant they needed to be in their mid-30s, right? They didn't mean he needed to exactly.
And they always say, oh, well, that's a kind of extreme. Well, this is just like that.
This is the exact same thing.
It specifically says it has to be in session, and they weren't. Simple.
The truth about this is, and this is what people, you've got to wake up to this, they are at war with us. And so the rules don't matter. That's the problem we're facing here. And unless we're going to meet them on that battlefield, we are going to lose because the president's going to do this stuff unless somebody physically stops him.
Exactly. And who's got the guts to stand up to the president?
Well, we'll get to that in a minute. Now,
where?
So this returns back to Xavier again, and Chris Wallace is going to ask him to justify it. Justify why the president is doing these things that are clearly illegal. And you're going to love this. He basically says he can do whatever he wants because people want him to do it. He doesn't have to follow the law. This is just This is just pure insanity.
The president said it already. He's going to act if Congress won't. Congress had the ability to act to change the law that denied gays marriage.
I got one more thing I want to ask you.
But if I could just conclude the last point.
One more thing I want to ask you about. Excuse me.
The president said it already. He's going to act if Congress won't.
So if Congress won't legislate to the president's satisfaction, then he's going to break the Constitution and he's going to become the legislative branch himself and do what he wants. I mean, they are at war with us.
Because, well, and I've said this before a number of times. I've talked to liberals who have said that there's no natural rights. That if 51% of the people believe something, then they should be able to get it. They believe in democracy. Democracy. They believe in the tyranny of the majority. And then now that they think they're close to having a majority, they can take off the mask, so to speak.
Well, you could work with that. You could work with that idiotic mindset if they at least administered it equally. If the majority always got what it wants, but they only pull that out when they're claiming they have a majority to do something. If we have a majority to do something, then all of a sudden majority rule is right out. Now, I don't believe in majority rule. Pure democracy is tyranny. We can talk about that at another time, but they're not even consistent with the ideology that they use to justify their own nonsense, much less follow the Constitution. So clearly the president is going to do whatever he wants if he thinks he can get away with it. The only way he cannot get away with it is if he is stopped. There are many ways which he can be stopped. Chris Wallace asks Bob Goodlatte about that very thing, and he's actually challenging Bob. He says to Bob in this interview, you all got a lawsuit, and you've done this before, and the Supreme Court has told you have other remedies to take care of this and dismissed your suit. Even if it makes it through the courts, by the time they adjudicate it, Barack will be out of office. Well, what's the point to all this? So he lets Goodlatte answer this, and Goodlatte is going to come clean. Here's the list of authorities that we have as Congress to deal with this problem, and he leaves essentially he leaves the final straw off the list. This is Bob Goodlatte giving us the list.
Well, first of all, with regard to the powers that the Constitution provides the Congress in its system of checks and balances, there are several. We have the power of legislation, the power of the purse. We have in the Senate the power to confirm appointments, which was what the Supreme Court decision was all about. We have the power of oversight, holding hearings, but we also have the power to bring causes of action when we believe that the President of the United States is exceeding his authority.
Yeah, and we have the power to file a lawsuit. What about the power to impeach, Bob?
I don't see any. The lawsuit. I mean, whenever they talk about this lawsuit thing, I saw the Tea Party Patriots, a national group, was supporting this. Any shred of respect I had for that national organization went out the window. This lawsuit is the dumbest idea in the history of mankind. It's the biggest false flag. Oh, we're going to do something.
Look,
do what the Constitution tells you to do, which is impeach him if he's violating his oath of office and getting high crimes and misdemeanors.
Well, of course,
it's easy.
Of course, the fact that this is all they'll do is a false flag. But let me describe to you for the listeners what if we were going to meet the enemy on this political battlefield and fight this war to win. Here's what we would do. They'd be holding hearings until the end of time, right now, on all of these things. Second, they would have cut the money off. They'd have shut the money off and not given him the money to break the law. Third, they would have started impeachment hearings. Fourth, they would have filed the lawsuit. They'd have had all four of those things all going at once. You open up every single gun you have and you empty them on your enemy. And what is our Congress doing for us? They won't cut the money off. They're not holding hearings on the crux of this issue. They're holding some hearings. I appreciate that. They won't impeach him.
Well, the hearings are fine.
And they're going to file a lawsuit.
It's a preliminary step to getting to impeachment proceedings.
And finding out information.
Right. I mean, it's nothing wrong inherently with the hearings. That's all they do. Hearings and a lawsuit, which is not going to work because you can't even make a case that they have standing. Because they have other remedies, and that's what the court said before, and they're going to say it again. They hope they drag this out through November so they can say when Boehner goes and other Republicans go before the angry people who want them to do something, well, file a lawsuit, and when we win the lawsuit, we'll put president back in place. That's not how you do it.
I could just see Goodlatte campaigning now this fall, going city to city, up and down the Shenandoah Valley and Roanoke and the 6th District, getting cheers from people as he talks about, and this president has to follow the Constitution, and to make him do so, we sued him. And everybody's going to go, yeah, and how'd that work out for us?
About as well as Ken Cuccinelli's lawsuit did.
Yeah.
Obamacare. Didn't work. We were the few people that were saying that was going to fail.
We told him to his face it was going to fail. It's no wonder he doesn't like you and I very much, is it? And even more so since we were right. But that's the point here. Congressman Xavier has demonstrated with his answers this morning that what the president and all of his supporters and everybody on the left, the liberals, the socialists, the statists, they are at war with us. And we are not fighting, and that is why we are losing. Until we meet them on the battlefield, till we bring out the weapons, and we discharge them at the enemy, we will lose. You got News Guardians. We'll be right back after this.
This is News Guardian. News Guardian.
I love your show, man. It's great. We just need to talk about it.
On WFJX, Fox Radio 910.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Annoying.
Brilliant.
Annoying.
Brilliant.
So,
we can't agree on the final season of How I Met Your Mother, but we can agree on the fact that the House of Representatives is doing a really, really bad job of administering its constitutional authority and keeping the executive branch in check.
Yeah, contrary to what it may seem like, I don't enjoy criticizing and dogging on people. I don't get joy out of calling Bob Goodlatte out for being ineffectual and lame. And not doing what's his responsibility as our elected official. There's no fun in that. We don't have a choice. And I know many people out there like Bob Goodlatte. There was a day when I did too. And then I started really paying attention, and I started digging into his record, and I started looking at the votes that he'd cast over the last 20 years as our congressman, even though he said he'd only be there for 8. And the term limit thing, the self-term limit thing aside, he's failed us. And what's going on right now is another example. Watch for Bob Goodlatte to sing the praises of them shirking their responsibility to stop the president from breaking the law and filing a lawsuit.
Well,
instead.
The Senate will never. I've broached the subject with Bob before, and the answer is always something to the effect of, "Well, I get where you're coming from, and I understand where you're saying, but the Senate won't convict him. So what's the point?"
The point is to do everything you can do, and if you're not doing what you can do, then you're failing.
But then we'll lose politically because we'll be paying in the media is trying to unrail the will of the people. In the
They're
voting
already
process.
painted in the media as doing that.
Exactly.
Whether they impeach or not.
So you might as well just go ahead and do the right
File
stuff.
the lawsuit. Impeach the man. Hold hearings. Cut off the money. Do it all.
Honestly,
this is not hard.
There are two things they need to do. It's really quite simple. Cut off the money and start impeachment proceedings and stuff. That's it. All these things that people are complaining about. Once you do the hearings, you find out whether he's committed a crime or a misdemeanor, which there's no definition of what that means. Obviously, I would say that blatantly violating the Constitution reaches those. I think you can make a case. You start the impeachment proceedings, and whatever he's doing, cut off the money. That's what Congress can do. It's that simple. It's not hard. It's not easy because it's politically dangerous and hard, but the answer is pretty simple.
Yep.
That's what you do. That's what Congress can do. And if you don't do it, then you're pretty much, or as Dick Durban said, We're talking about the immigration thing.
Yeah.
There's a priceless quote here because he was asked about what the president is going to do, and he said much the same thing that Xavier said. But he said effectively the president's just going to borrow the authority. Because if the people want them to do something about immigration, if Congress won't act, the president will borrow the authority.
That was in Article 13 of the Constitution, where it says, the executive branch can borrow the authorities of the other branches when they won't act to his or her satisfaction. Yeah, I remember that. That was in the Constitution.
It's secret.
It's the secret Constitution.
But you made a great point on one of the breaks. Yes, it's all violating the Constitution, and the president has no authority to do any of this stuff. But if he does it and no one stops him, he has the authority.
They're not even trying. You may try and fail. And you may end up having to send police over to the White House and arrest him. I don't know. But the point is they're not even trying. They're just playing politics and saying things and filing lawsuits and pontificating. They're not doing anything to stop it.
They don't see this as a crisis. They see this as business. This is politics.
Oh, yeah.
It's all politics as usual. And we do the same things. No, you don't.
And this is why News Guardian Elizabeth is showing my parents around D.C. today instead of me. Because I can't stand to look at and this is sad, because when I was a kid and when I was in Boy Scouts and we took trips to Washington, D.C., I was in awe of those monuments and the people that they represented and the good that was inherent in freedom and in our republic. I loved it. And the crooked, worthless, wastoid politicians that we have had over the last 2 decades have destroyed that. I can't even think about standing there and looking at all that without wanting to throw up now. It makes me physically ill to even consider being next to it.
Well, what's the problem with all this is that the greatness of this nation is predicated on the people being free to do what they want to do. Microsoft wasn't formed by some government agency. It was formed by a guy in his garage making computers.
Essentially.
This is the greatness, freedoms and greatness we have are based on the government getting out of the way of the American people to be great. But we have somehow, in glorifying this nation, it's not the people, it's not the freedom, it's the government that somehow has made this nation great. And that little twist is what's messing things up, because now everything has to be, how is the president going to fix the economy? The president doesn't fix the economy. To fix the economy, just get out of its way. Just get out of its way. The only reason we're having this bad economic information and news is because the government keeps getting in the way of business. Just get out of the way.
They don't want to get out of the way.
Get out of the way.
Because they want power. Why would they get out of the way? Nobody's going to make them. They get stuff by being in the way, and if it means that we all live in abject poverty and misery in the end, so what, as long as they got theirs?
Yeah,
what motivation is there for them to get out of the way? We're not making them.
Why should
they?
Because Congress gets just as much power. The whole thing is maddening. The whole thing was really maddening. Of course, the thing that shocks me the most about you, Greg Aldridge, is, again, that you continue to root for the football team from that godforsaken city. So.
But I can't go to a game there because you got to get too close to D.C. My team doesn't even play in D.C.
The People's Republic of Maryland.
The Redskins are so sick of D.C., they moved the stadium out of town.
To Maryland. The People's Republic of Maryland.
As bad as Maryland is, it's not as bad as D.C.
Maybe.
They should have moved the stadium into Virginia.
Well, we're almost there. With Fast Terry, we'll be as bad as Maryland soon enough.
Will Terry have Dan Snyder over for drinks, get him drunk, and talk him into moving the team into Virginia?
He'll try. I'm sure. Come on, old guy. I don't really care about this Redskin thing either, but, we can make some serious points here, and you can look like a good guy. I'll help you out, man.
Well, speaking of people crossing borders, a minute ago you were talking about Durban, justifying the president breaking the law,
borrowing the powers
on immigration by borrowing that secret constitutional power to borrow the authority of other branches of government. Nancy Pelosi made a statement that this is essentially sedition. Nancy Pelosi says what she's saying is that Mexico and the United States are one big group, one country, one community, one entity that just happens to have a border running through it. And I'm not kidding. I kid you not. This is what she said. Here, I'm going to take a listen.
That anyone who comes here sees that this is a community with a border going through it.
Don't worry about people.
Borders don't matter.
We shouldn't even have the border. It's just a line. We're all one community, right? I don't even know what to say.
Now, Michael Savage, who you can hear here on Fox Radio 910 every afternoon, talks about this every day. Is the
4 to 6 o'clock.
And that's the
borders, language, culture.
That's what defines a nation.
And what's the first thing on his list? Borders, then language and culture. Borders, language, culture. Now the only reason why I can remember that so simply is because it's a mantra. He never stops saying it, and because what he's trying to explain to people is those are the foundational blocks of having a nation. If you don't have borders, language, and culture, you do not have a country. You do not have a nation. You do not have a civilization.
And that's what the United States is founded on, the unique premise that all men are created equal and that people can come here from different parts of the country legally and become part of this melting pot, live in this constitutional republic where you can be free to express your and find your true happiness doing what you want to do, and that success has led to a successful, prosperous nation. That's the whole point. It's a unique experiment, unique to this country, and we're bastardizing it based on this ridiculous sense of community and diversity, which is nothing wrong with a community, but they've taken perfectly good words and turned them into code words that make you want to vomit. This whole border community thing is sedition. She's basically saying the border doesn't matter anymore.
I blame the French.
It's always easy to blame the French.
Because they built us that statue and they etched on that statue, send us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses.
Yearning to be free.
That just sounded like Europe trying to get rid of the people they didn't want. Why didn't they send us a statue that said, send us your smart, your...
Well, there's nothing wrong with... I mean, immigration is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, the funny thing is those tired and poor and huddled masses... They were hardworking people, and they were smart people, and they came here for decades. They came here from Europe. Europe thought it was getting rid of their dregs. What they were getting rid of was the foundation for the strongest civilization in the history of the world. And why? Because we had a process to legally bring people into our country and make them a part of our civilization.
And our culture.
And those people that they thought were worthless weren't worthless. They were some of the most worthwhile human beings to ever walk the planet. And why were we a strong nation then? Because we legally, properly processed them into our system, made them Americans.
And made them part of our culture.
Exactly.
They spoke the language. You know, this whole, Spanish is just as good as English. I mean, English is the language of this country. This culture is based on the principles of the Declaration of Independence. You have to abide by those. This is a constitutional republic that we formed with the Constitution, and we have this. It doesn't matter what color your skin is. It doesn't matter where they're coming from. We need a legal process to bring in immigrants who are willing to work hard to find the American dream, whatever that is these days, and make that happen. But no, we've taken what was a beautiful thing and turned it into something that's a destructive thing to this constitutional republic. It's sickening.
For politics and power. That's exactly what all this is about.
Because the Republicans want slave labor, and Democrats want votes. It's bottom line. The Chamber of Commerce, that bastion of Republican values, has become the most sickening, grotesque, sold-out organization I've ever seen. Just makes me nauseous. I'm getting ready to have you better play the A-Team theme soon, or I'm gonna.
Are you gonna have a conniption?
I am. I can't stand it. These drive me nuts. This whole thing is, and You see this every day. It's just now people are starting to pay attention to this nonsense. But because Democrats have been saying this nonsense forever, and the Republicans have been putting up with it forever, and no one seems to have enough intestinal fortitude to actually do the right thing. And it makes people, A, mad, and B, they just don't want to participate in the process anymore because the process doesn't work.
So here's what someone has commented that this is their translation of what Nancy said. There are no such thing as illegal aliens because we're already one nation. So the illegals are really just American citizens who are living on the other side of that meaningless border thingy.
That's about right. Everybody come here. We all one world, man. We're all equal. All ideas are just as good as everybody else's. Yay!
All right, we're running out of time. We're about out of time. We've got one more break to do, and then we come back, and you've got a couple of local things. We had two stories that we wanted to get to. One was about what the VA was spending money on instead of saving the lives and providing medical care to veterans, which may have to wait till tomorrow. And the other was the NSA. The NSA issuing its transparency report card. But then we also had the IRS getting fined $50,000 for disclosing private information of a taxpayer for political purposes to their political enemies.
But we wouldn't be doing our civic duty as in the Roanoke market, but not making fun of the Roanoke City Council at least one time during our hour.
No. So we'll do that. If there's time, we'll get to these other stories, and we may have to hold them over, because these need to be talked about and talk about them in the morning. So don't go away. We're the News Guardians. We'll be right back on Fox Radio 910.
News Guardians on Fox Radio 910.
Well, he should have thought about that before he said no.
Amen.
All right. I'm experiencing a similar situation in my life right now where, in a contract dealing where someone has said they'll do this, and then I offered a little bit more, and then they decided to put all that together to some other deal that wasn't an option, and now the offer they made, it's as if they didn't even say it.
People are people. And then whether they be in the problem is people are people, but when you put people, that's why we have a constitution, Greg, because the founders realized that people are people and are innately dishonest and will innately try to work the system for their own benefits. They created a system that puts limits on their power so they can't do it, which of course is very, very inconvenient for presidents who want to be king. So
it's not working. Just as Patrick Henry and the rest of the anti-federalists tried to tell those people, it won't work. It's not going to work in the way you think. We've got to make this better. They were right, but
well, and
here we are.
As I promised before the break, if we make a point of making fun of Roanoke City Council as often as possible, and I think we talked about this before, but it came to my attention again that the Roanoker magazine, of course, puts out their yearly, best of, and the Platinum Award for the best free laugh was Tuned In, which is done by Blair Payton, who does the voiceovers for a lot of the things here. It's a show he does. Where does he do the show at?
What show?
Tune In. He does it on
Tuned Out. It runs, I think, at midnight Sunday nights on Channel 10.
Yeah, it's a show he's been producing himself for a while.
Years. They've done a number of seasons now.
It's quite funny, and he got an award. But they
film it here at the radio station because the show is actually about the hijinks happening at a radio station. It's a little more edgy than WKRP in Cincinnati was, but that they gave him an award.
In fact, I came into the studio the other day, and there was a whole bag of props, wigs and costume jewelry. I'm like, what the heck is this? Oh, there must be shooting an episode.
So he got the platinum?
Yes, the platinum.
Is that the highest level?
It's the highest. But the second, coming in a close second, was Roanoke City Council for the best free laughs of 2013.
Wow.
So, I do find it funny, the Roanoke magazine, while they fully support the communist, ridiculous crony capitalism efforts of the Roanoke City Council that have failed so miserably, as we've chronicled day in and day out here on News Guardians. They do find the hijinks and their ridiculosity at least funny enough to give an award to.
Well, maybe what they think is funny is the fact that they get away with it. Maybe they get a good laugh out of that. I don't know. What I find amusing about that is that and I feel bad for Blair, because I think it diminishes the award that Blair got. But if our city council, through the serious work that they are supposed to do as elected representatives, get almost as many laughs and are almost as funny as Blair and his people when they are working really hard to be funny, that's just sad.
Well, obviously the people of Roanoke City like comedy, because they reelected the same people who the Roanoke Magazine finds so humorous. So I guess you could have your comedy routine for another couple of years, and we'll see how that works out for the city.
Well, we know how it's working out.
The other story, from a local perspective, is in the Roanoke Times this morning, and we talk a good bit about the power of the police to do searches and things of that nature.
Yes.
Well, there's a local story that's getting some information here in Salem, where Salem police are being questioned about how much authority they can have when it comes to doing searches. And somehow I've lost the story that I was doing.
What?
I had it right here on my computer, I swear.
You're funny.
Oh, my goodness.
Well, we've only got a minute, so you're just going to have to try to remember what it said.
Basically, it comes down to warrantless searches, and the police are always going to be pushing for warrantless searches, and there's a authority that they shouldn't be taking. So it's interesting that a local Salem story seems to be falling into the same meme that's happening across the country, where the police continue to push for authority that they may or may not have under the Fourth Amendment. But since we only have a minute left, and I'm doing a terrible job of talking about the story, I'm going to stop talking about it.
To wrap this up, then, another thing on police power and Fourth Amendment. The NSA released its first transparency report card. And this is the first official revelation of its activity since it was ordered to do so by the president, and posted on the NSA's official page. The report details the number of orders for 2013 broken out by national security letters, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act orders, and government requests for business records. The report states there have been 38,812 targets of national security letters, 1,767 FISA orders, that's the FISA court, which they set up so that they could get warrants for things under the guise of terrorism without actually getting a real warrant. They got a special court just for them. 423 targets of FISA looking into business records. This is. How would we even know if these numbers are accurate?
It's not what differences. The numbers don't matter. It's which each one they did with each one of those cases that matter. It's silly. It's ridiculous. But, well, what else did you expect?
Unfortunately, it is what I expect. What I'd rather have is what we're supposed to be, instead of our government just basically saying. That gets old after a while.
That's what happened in 1776.
And that's it. We'll see you in the morning.